English spelling is a lot like German 985. It's totally zonked. It's obvious that English spelling got screwed up real bad somewhere down the line. So, to riff on my first video, did somebody put something in the cheeseburgers because this is not natural? Well, actually, okay, in the video on Chinese characters I just referenced, there actually was consistency and everything made sense. Here? Look, let's go back to Germa. There's all these streamers. Some of them are pretty cool, some are a little strange. And this guy is zonked!
No, I don't know why that's there. No, I know you zerked off.
This guy's out here eating shoes on stream, getting pregnant,
Press left trigger to enter.
and even slapping himself like a sicko. He's just a mess.
Do something funny.
Despite the fact that he's a very strange man, he once was a normal human being who liked TF2 and didn't drink poop wine.
I gotta eat an egg. On camera now.
So how did you get this mustache hair?
Somebody just said I had mustache hair.
Well, let's start back at the beginning. In the year, 700, English existed. But it was, well, is that really English? Is this like the ship of Theseus paradox where it doesn't matter, look at the words? Wanna know something cool about these words? You pronounced everything. Even if some of these sounds did not exist in modern English, they were properly annotated. We said everything we wrote, even if we used 2 letters to make a single sound. It was consistent and made sense for the time. However, every single language evolves, including English. In Middle English, we dropped a bunch of these sounds and characters. But as I said, all languages evolve. So why is it that other languages have actually good spelling, unlike English? Well, that's because of a lot of things. So let's start off with our first category. What screwed up English in the first place? To begin, let's start out with the British Isles' favorite people. Ah yes, France, the nation of frogs, French people, and pure British ire. France decided one day, hey, let's just take over the British Isles, and they did that pretty well. And then they said to the peasants, hey, we speak French, and they were like, I don't care, do you think I care? I don't care. And the French said, okay, but we're the government now. And the peasants realized they cared a little bit. You had to understand a bit of the French language to understand the government. As a matter of fact, this is where we got a lot of words from. Affair, beef, commerce, tax, district, they're all from French. But that's not even the most important part. The other part to this is that English is a Germanic language. However, due to the heavy influence from French, it has since gained some Romance language traits. Nearly 20% of all English vocab is influenced by the French language, even if the Norman invaders may have spoken a language different from modern French. While nobody knows for certain, this may have also influenced the dropping of different consonants. In French, it would be weird to combine K and N to a kn sound, so French speakers may have dropped it. Or English speakers may have dropped it just because it would sound weird with those new words. But even then, sounds just change in a language for no real reason anyways, so take what I just said with a grain of salt. But it's obvious that the dropping of weird sounds could be due to foreigners learning the language. But if I were to just throw that out there, it would sound like bogus. After all, French people weren't the entire British Isles. But there's one big reason that a lot of the language may have changed real quick. A bunch of people were forced into the south of the British Isles, who spoke a bunch of different languages. And it does have to do with German 985.
Wretch, we're wretch, we're the wretch. We pray at night, we stalk at night, we're the wretch.
The Black Plague was pretty deadly. It kind of killed a bunch of people. It was literally the only time in recorded human history that the human population went down. With that in mind, the British Isles took a hit, especially the French population. For the 200 years after the Norman invasion, French was still dominant in the government as a language. Until the Black Death killed so many French people that Edward III said they should just stop talking about laws in French due to how few people knew French by then. Most notably, however, is that everybody ended up in the south of the Isles. Now, there were a bunch of languages spoken in the British Isle by this time. Scottish Gaelic, Cornish, English, French, and others. So if everybody's trying to understand each other and say their words and other stuff like that, maybe that's why we dropped the K in Knief. It's pretty simple when it's put that way, right? If those other languages didn't pronounce it like that, maybe the impact of foreign speakers changed it. Wait, I said Knief, not Knife. Oh yeah, the vowel shift. Hey, you see these two words? Beat and beat? Yeah, they were pronounced differently at one point. The vowel shift is pretty simple, so I can go through this quick. But it's simple in the sense that I can't give you an explanation! Okay, so we have words like beat and beat, yet long ago they were pronounced like bet and bait. Pretty simple, different combo of letters, different sound, makes sense. So why did it change? No, I'm not prompting the question you mentally asked yourself and then answering it. I'm being rhetorical. Nobody knows why. It just happened? But even with this weird changing of, like, every vowel in English, a language changing isn't the important part. It's what happened while it was changing. Look, we can only blame the French for so much before we have to look at the reason why the plague and the French and the vowel shift was not the big problem. As suggested in the title of the video, the printing press ruined the English language. So, here's part 2. What happened? So, the printing press. It was invented just about 80 years after the Black Plague ended. English was rapidly changing and evolving during this time. But here's the problem, Johannes Gutenberg is German. Now, I'm not ragging on his nationality or anything, but when the printing press made its way to the British Isles, German didn't have the character thorn, which is that TH sound like the or th. So English speakers had to put T and H together to make that sound. So whenever books were printed, they used that instead of thorn, and thorn was really cool. Now, there wasn't really anything wrong with that. That standardization doesn't really affect English in the modern day, but come on, this character looks so cool. Why couldn't we have kept it? I hate you, Johannes Gutenberg. Die. Well, he's already dead, but whatever. Anyways, the big problem afterwards was the fact that everybody needed to standardize their spelling. After all, if you didn't know what you're reading, you couldn't really know what you're reading. So, the Germans decided to base their standards of writing off of Martin Luther. After all, he was pretty influential. It's also worth noting that nowadays there's a council that regulates the German language. But the big thing was that German wasn't evolving really quickly, unlike English. So, how did English standardize writing in this time of heavy changes? They decided to base the dialect off of the London dialect. This was mainly due to the influence of William Caxton, a writer. It was quite obvious to everyone that the language was evolving really quickly. So Caxton did the only logical thing and set up a council for the English language. That's why writing makes so much sense today. Actually, he didn't do that. He just standardized it once, and that's what we have today. We are basically reading Middle English right now. While there has been a bit more light standardization with some different dictionaries, those were still over 250 years ago. This standardization is pretty much the answer to everything here. This is why night has a GH. This is why Y has a WH. This is why everything is so screwy. As a matter of fact, some grammar could have changed if we set up a council for the English language. While playing Assassin's Creed 4, I realized that all the nouns were capitalized in the subtitles. I looked it up, and as a matter of fact, there was a trend of capitalizing nouns in the 1700s. But nowadays, we obviously don't do that. If we set up a council for the English language, maybe this would have been accepted. After all, it'd help us distinguish different words in text. This is what German does. But here we are, with our mess of a language. Modern English orthography is basically just a picture of a collapsing building. You can kinda get where it's gonna land, but really, it's imperfect. But here's the thing, and it brings me back to German 985.
That stop sign looks a little sus.
Do we even need to standardize English? After all, a part of the drive to learn a language is its quirks. This is why I'm learning Japanese, even if it's, well, incredibly hard. The insane parts are what drives me to learn it. And that's like how German is. He's insane.
But the thing in the fridge is definitely not human meat.
Maybe this disgusting mesh of letters is the perfect reason to learn English, other than, of course, you know, how big it is. Just like with Germa, the insanity is part of the joy. It's a picture of history, even if this doesn't look like the right way to say it. I hope y'all liked my video on the simple history of why English spelling is weird. Basically, a bunch of changes were happening, it got standardized once, and it was never standardized again. My next video will be on how you say things incorrectly, correctly. And I know that sounds like gibberish, but trust me, it's going to be a really interesting video. Until next time!